Okay, so welcome everyone to our May Advocates Network meeting. Thank you all for being here in such a busy season. As a reminder, our community commitments are to move up and move back, or make space, take space. Of course, not all of us know everything, but together we know a lot, and we're here to learn together. And within our advocates network, we presume positive intent with each other in our interactions, but also want to acknowledge the impact of the things we say and do in this space. I think you're all familiar with our vision and mission, so we can keep going.
Okay. It's slow for some reason. I'm probably going to click twice and then it's going to go twice. Dang it. There we go.
All right, and of course,
See, told you.
that's okay. We can keep moving through. Advocates Network is the space where all of our public education advocates come together and learn from each other and gain some tools and information to continue working on our education advocacy. And of course, our North Star in this space is to secure sufficient funding and supports so that our public schools can meet the needs of every student. And some of what you're seeing on the screen is kind of the four main ways or big buckets of work that we have here at Great Ed these days.
Trying. I will start clicking long before it's needed. Yep, see. Is this me, Kristen, once it goes back?
Yeah.
Uh, so this is a really big deal. It took me a while. We've been head down with get it done for a long time. But we just had a really big success in that the House passed our adequacy study resolution. Um, and then it went over to the Senate, and the Senate passed it, even though we passed it last year. They passed it again, 33-2 in the Senate, 54-5 in the House. And what that means is that we have legislators who, and a couple dozen Republican legislators who say public education uh, is the cornerstone of our democracy and of our healthy communities. They said, and this is a big deal. Those of you who have been fighting with us for a long time know, they all said more money means better educational outcomes. We've had to fight for that, and now we have over 20 Republicans who have acknowledged that. They acknowledge that we need to. What they promised is that they are going to learn about the adequacy studies, make a choice between the two methodologies, and create a blueprint for student success, recognizing that not having a BS factor is not full funding schools, that we actually have a North Star and they have committed to go there. It is a big deal. And so we have a 5-step process for get it done. Number one, get the adequacy studies commissioned and funded and completed. And then we spent a lot of time through presentations and with our videos, and online, and all of our education channels to share the results with our advocates, with legislators, with the public, with with what's left of the press. To say this is what the adequacy studies mean, this is what's necessary, this is the North Star. And then the third thing that we were going to do is get the legislature to commit to implementing those studies, not putting it on a shelf. So we got 3 done, 2 to go. And the 2 that we have to go is secure dollars, secure the revenues that we need so that we can start approaching the North Star, And we are well on our way with step four, which is that we've now got 135 we'll talk about and 195. We're saying that those two together equal fully funded schools. Because if we do both of these measures this year, and this is the year to do it, we can look at our elementary school students and know that they could graduate from fully funded high schools. That has it hasn't happened in decades. And so this is something that we really need I hope you all will spread the word. And when you see this, we've got a blog about this, share it on all your social media because it's a big deal. We did this. We did this. The Get It Done campaign, Great Education Colorado advocates, we made this happen. And we're even on step five, creating that blueprint. We've gone a long way already because we've been working with Representative Bacon and Senator Kipp and a whole lot of other legislators who have been learning about the adequacy studies and committing to this process. So we are in the midst of getting it done. And I just want to thank every one of you here and all the advocates who have been standing with us and all the organizations, Colorado PTA, League of Women Voters, who have A for PEP, who have recognized that this is a long game and that we had to put together infrastructure, and we did it, and we're doing it, and this is going to be the year. I am so optimistic and so excited. It really did take a minute for me to think, wait a minute, we had a plan, we stuck to it, and we're in the middle of it. Um, and these are just some of the pictures from our advocacy efforts over the last couple of years. The sitting on the floor of the Senate as the Senate passed it last year, and then they passed it again this year, and from our advocacy days. So thank you to all of you who have been there, and I'm going to kick it back to Kristen to just have a minute to chat about advocacy and starting it off on sort of a high note.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. This is really exciting, and Lisa is the perfect person to deliver the message. She has been in the trenches of this work with all of you for years and years, and also is really good at bringing the energy and rallying a crowd. So thanks so much, Lisa. I'm seeing in the chat, Christy asked, who decided to vote on it again in the Senate? Was it Senator Kolker, Lisa? Do we know?
Senator Kolker was the sponsor in the Senate. Last year, as you'll recall, we got it done in the Senate, and it just got gummed up in the House. I did not expect actually that the Senate was going to move on it, but they just moved it in the usual way. And I guess Senator Kolker decided to just maybe while they were waiting for something else to happen on the floor, but this is the way that it usually happens. And it just didn't happen last year for whatever reason that the House wouldn't pull it up. So now we've got one resolution, both sides voting in an overwhelming and bipartisan way.
Did we pick up some of the Republicans that voted against it last year?
We must have because, well, one of them is Paul Lundeen, and he is no longer in the Senate. But
Oh,
we must have picked up three others because I think there were five voting no last year.
okay.
So I haven't had a chance to look at at who it would be, but we definitely gained support from Republicans.
That's awesome. I am so excited for all
It
your
is
hard work, Lisa. You've
all
been doing
our
this
hard
for
work.
so long. And yeah.
And, one other Victor, I'm just going to mention that the work of Get It Done, and you guys have all been a part of that, is that everybody's talking about the adequacy studies. Every article that talks about school funding will say, and we're 3.5 to 4.1 billion dollars below what's necessary to meet the needs of all our students. So that is like in the zeitgeist. That's something that keeps coming up, and that's a really important milestone that we planted in the ground that everybody has to keep acknowledging.
Hmm.
It's really a big deal.
Yeah, we are very excited, obviously. And so we wanted to just give a moment if anyone would like to come off mute and share a celebration or a memory or like a thought for the group as we continue working on those next steps that Lisa outlined. So if anyone would like to speak, now is your time.
This isn't
I'll
directly
call.
related to the question, but just I'm so happy for some positive news because I just keep talking to friends all over the country about what's happening in their public school districts and how, everybody's scrambling for pennies to get pencils into their classrooms and we're bombing other countries and it just feels like it's overwhelming and there's no path forward. So this is amazing news. This makes me so hopeful for Colorado.
Spread the word.
And thank you so much. Like, yeah, like Kristen said, Lisa, you've been in it for decades and decades, and this is huge. This is so, so exciting. I remember when Dawn first told me about the adequacy studies, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand any of this. And she's like, just come to the Get It Done Day. You'll figure it out. And I was just so happy to be invited into that and be part of this movement. It's wonderful.
We're thrilled to have you in it.
Go ahead, Barb.
No, I don't have much to add, but congratulations, Lisa, and everybody in your group.
Everybody.
I just remember kind of trudging along at all the presentations, trying to wrap my head around the whole concept and, how it seemed to kind of things bogged down or hit a plateau all the time. And, you kind of go, and then we were excited last year when it passed the House and we're sure we're going to get it through the Senate. It's kind of like one step forward and two back. But it's kind of nice to know that if you keep plugging away one task at a time, it gets done. And I'm just I I think I needed this because I'm just so discouraged about everything else that's going on. And lastly, I was just going to say I think it's just a big boost to public education because it just seems like that's been on the going on the mat every other day and there's nothing but bad news, but it's so good to have good news and congratulations and thanks for keeping up the good work. We still got work to go, but somehow I'm energized for the next go round.
Good. Glad to hear it. You've been a huge part of this. We're going to get it done. We are going to get it done.
I know I talk a lot, but I just was sitting here thinking about sitting in the chamber last year when the Senate passed it and how incredibly emotional I felt and proud of Great Education Colorado. And I just wanted to share that because I'm choking up again, especially realizing that they passed it again in the Senate. I mean, that is amazing. Anyway, stopping.
I'm going to take a minute here um, for some of my favorite education advocacy moments have been made possible. And the one that we're going to celebrate this November were made possible by our attorney, Ed Ramey. Ed passed away a couple weeks ago. Just out of the blue, working like I had emails in. We've been going back and forth about this. He drafted Amendment 73. I think he drafted Amendment 23. He drafted Initiative 195 and all the other 30 some ballot measures that we had to put forward to get to single subject and to what we wanted. He got it past the Supreme Court. He did the same thing for Amendment 73. He was a litigator, an, a great attorney, brilliant, and a counselor, and just a good, good man. And I can't let this day, his memorial service was this morning, and I can't let this moment pass without making sure that every one of you knows the name Ed Ramey. Everybody in Colorado, whether it's because of reproductive freedoms and civil rights and fiscal reform. Every Coloradan has benefited from Ed Ramey, with the possible exceptions of John Caldera and Michael Fields, who he defeated a couple of times in a wonderful way. So let's win this for Ed. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thanks so much, everyone, for your reflections and for being in this work with us. We are just really grateful to have you here, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Lisa, for acknowledging Ed as well.
Okay, what do I got? Sorry about this. Well, I think this is where we're supposed to be now, right? So we quick updates on the legislative session. As most of y'all know, Senate Bill 26-135, known as Cut the Ropes, was a resolution supported, promoted by Colorado Education Association, that is going to increase the Tabor cap by the amount that we spend, general fund we spend on education. That's about $4.6 billion. And so it's going to, the Tabor surplus, or we will not approach the Tabor limit. If this passes, we will not approach the Tabor limit for a few years, which means that if the economy does well, we can actually invest in our schools instead of give back all the money like we did with $8 billion over the last 3 or 4 years, after cutting $10 billion out of our schools. So the Senate gave it final passage today. So it is going to the ballot. It will be Proposition 00 maybe, but we'll have to see. That they haven't given it the official, but it will be a proposition on the ballot. The way that it now works, what's going to happen is that if there is a surplus, the first money goes to the homestead exemption. That's about 200 million. And then the next money goes to filling up the 2% increase from the year before. That's about $107 million would be next year. So it's a 2% increase from what was spent by of general fund the year before. After that, however much is left is cut in half. 50% of it will go into the School Finance Act. This is new from when it was introduced, by the way. 50% more would go into into K-12, and then the remaining 50% is to be used by the legislature for programs that support children. So it could be Medicaid, it could be foster care, and it could be more K-12 if they wanted to do that. So this right now, it's estimated that they would be able to, there will be a surplus next year. I will say that today the inflation numbers for year over year from April 2026 back to 2025 is 3.8%. So when either revenues decline, like if there's a recession, or when inflation increases, that has an impact on whether there's a surplus or not. But the main thing about this is that over time, this is the long-term source of funding for schools, which is why we say with 195, which Kristen will be talking about in a second, and 135, we can really build toward full funding of our schools with both the short term and the long term fiscal changes that are really necessary to reverse this decades long strangling of school finance, school funding. The School Finance Act this year. Oh yeah, Christy.
The 50% that goes into the school funding formula, is it specifically to not supplant, but to supplement?
I don't know the answer to that, Christy. I know that is the intent. I don't know if it says that. That is a very good question. that we will, if anybody else on here knows, feel free to jump in, but that is a great question. The School Finance Act, the legislature really worked hard to not bring back a BS factor. And so you got to give them kudos for holding the line. Just about everything happened like according to current law. What was passed last year, that means that we're now at 3-year averaging for student enrollment, which the governor last year had suggested to go to 1-year averaging, which would have absolutely decimated just about 70% of our school districts last year. So they kept the line on 3-year averaging. They used it's a 2.4% inflation increase for the base. And they are implementing the new School Finance Act at 30%. All of that is they were on track. That's what they were last year. They said would be what would happen in the 26-27 school year. There's still a hold harmless to the old school finance formula. So there's some districts that do worse under the new school finance formula, and they get to go back to the old one. And so that stays in place. And they did a lot of cuts to grants last year, and they didn't do more grants this year. This all, thank you, according to Tracy Rainey, who, by the way, is retiring soon, and we'll be doing a whole lot of talking about that because she is a godmother of everything the good that has ever happened in school finance over the last 30 years. Now, I want to be clear that the fact that they didn't create a BS factor does not mean there aren't going to be cuts, because they're still dealing with the declining enrollment, because inflation at 2.4%, that is not the inflation that our schools are going to be facing next year. It's going to be, like I said, it's 3.8 is the new, knowing what we know about gas prices and diesel prices, and that is the basis of so much else in terms of inflation. I know that Greeley, for instance, I talked to Superintendent Pilch, and they're looking at having to figure out how to cut $9 million. Jeffco, I don't know, Caitlin, if you have a number for Jeffco.
60 million.
$60 million. That's without a BS factor. So, and the other thing that we have to think about is that they have used a lot of one-time dollars over the last 2 years to balance this, and there's not a lot left for next year. So there may be quite a hole that they are that they're digging for the future. So they did as good a job as could be for this year, but that won't stop the cliff from happening. And I want to say this too, before we talk about 195. One of the pushback we get is, how do we know that this money is going to go to K-12? And I think we need to look at this year as the legislature felt like they made huge cuts to a lot of things, and they felt the pressure in an election year. But they feel the pressure to do right by K-12. And we are building muscle all the time to be ready for it. But next year, if we bring in $2 billion or more dollars, we're going to see a very healthy increase. It's going to stem the bleeding, and over time, if we get both things passed, we will be back to building back instead of just not cutting. And for some districts, that'll start next year. So I think that's that. So Kristen, tell me 5 seconds before you want the slide to change. No, I think it's
Okay,
working.
now for the next slide. So Caitlin teed this up perfectly. She asked some questions as we were just logging on about like where things stand with Protect Colorado's Future and the graduated income tax. Looking at the attendance list, I believe almost all of you are carrying petitions already, so we don't want to take too long, rehashing all of this. But just as a quick summary for anyone who is new here, with Initiative 195, which is the graduated income tax that Protect Colorado's Future Coalition is working on, we would be striking the sentence from Tabor that requires all income to be taxed at the same rate. So we are only removing language from the Constitution. We are not adding anything to the Constitution. All the other changes would be in statute, which means that we can win with a majority of the votes. This measure would be a tax decrease for 97% of Coloradans. So everyone who makes less than $500,000 a year in Colorado taxable income will see their taxes cut a bit. It's only that top 2 to 3% of income earners in Colorado, people that make $500,000 or more in CTI, that will see their taxes increase. And we estimate that this measure will bring in at least $2 billion every year for K-12 public education, healthcare, and early childhood care and education. And the same tax structure that is applied to individuals would also be applied to corporations. So one thing, that people sort of love to bring up in opposition or as a question is what happens to small businesses. You can assure them that under this measure, small businesses would also be getting a bit of a tax cut, just like, most Coloradans. We also want to mention that this graduated income tax ballot measure requires an annual audit of revenue allocation, so there are accountability measures baked in, and that this measure 195 would not make any changes to Tabor rebates. All right, some recent stats. This bottom part will probably look familiar to many of you who have been on our meetings recently or done our training. But as you probably got texts and emails about, last Friday was our first sort of progress check and petition turn-in deadline. We've gotten a bunch of petitions from across the state mailed to us or delivered back to us, or like trains of, people getting them back to Denver from outlying parts of the state. So we are working on totaling all of those up, and we have started verification as of a few weeks ago. But I can tell you that we have handed out almost 2,600 petitions, which is enough for over 100,000 signatures already. Like I said, we're still kind of tabulating like how many of those have come back to us and checking how many of those are valid. We're starting to track what Senate district they're all in to see how we're doing there. We have 760 as of like 1 hour ago petition circulators. That includes, staff of organizations like Great Ed and our coalition partners, and mostly volunteers, which is really amazing. We now have 22 petition hubs across the state. Let's see who's on the call. Christy is a petition hub in Westminster and connected us with some folks in Crested Butte. Jan is a petition hub in Colorado Springs. And Caitlin, I believe, is on our map as a notary. So thank you all so much for all the work that you're doing so far, the connections you're making, the signatures you're gathering. This is really a big volunteer effort, and we are super grateful for all of you. We just opened, I was on the Eastern Plains like 2 weeks ago, so we now have a petition hub in Lamar. I know that our field director, Aaron, has been in touch with an organization in Durango that is working on getting set up as a hub. So we're really expanding our reach, which is super exciting. Oh, and Angie is a notary in Louisville. Amazing. I will get in touch with you, Angie.
If you have just know of people, friends who have maybe move to Durango. A lot of retired people I've been finding are doing that kind of thing. But if you know people in any other parts of the state who might, being a petition hub in a small rural town is not like overwhelming, but it's really helpful.
Yes,
Caitlin?
definitely.
Do you have people in Grand Junction?
Some, but not enough.
Okay.
Yeah, there's always room for more. One of our coalition partners is the Western Colorado Alliance, and so they are holding it down in Grand Junction as a petition hub and notaries, and they're doing verification over there as well. And then we have some organizers from Western Colorado Alliance and some of the other coalition orgs that are in Grand Junction or like in that area.
Okay.
We've also Frank and Tammy Reeves are really awesome education advocates that are out that way. But again, we are, like Lisa said, you can never have too many. So,
Grand
Caitlin,
Junction
I'm
is one
just
where
trying to think.
yeah,
in with Amendment 73, Grand Junction is one of the places that we had to supplement with paid signature gatherers. So we would very much like to not have to do that this time.
I will follow up with you about this, Caitlin. Thank you. And then just to remind folks, obviously, we spent a lot of time developing the policy, going through the title board, doing message testing and surveys and all of the things. And now we are really in the thick of the signature gathering phase. So our coalition deadline for folks to submit signatures is July 13th. Our absolute last day to submit signatures to the Secretary of State is August 3rd. So we'll probably have a bit of, final collection happening in those last few weeks. But at that point, we will really be focusing on verifying and curing signatures to the extent that we can. As I said, we've already started verifying, but, hopefully we will have hundreds of thousands of signatures to verify, and that takes time.
We have
And
a
then
backlog in verification, but I got to tell you that I've been doing this and they are virtually all above 90%, which is like a lot better than people standing in front of kings because these are activists, these are people who know people, so it's cool. And verifying is a lot of fun. I do at least one a day, one petition a day.
and we also, just as a reminder, we need to gather 125,000 valid signatures. Our coalition goal is 200,000 to, make sure that we have the correct number of valid signatures. But as Lisa said, our verification rate so far has been great. Within this 125,000, we need 2% of registered voters from each of our 35 state Senate districts. So, like we've talked about, we're already across the state, but especially, any connections at this point are very welcome, but especially if you have folks sort of outside the Denver metro area and the Front Range that you think might be interested in carrying a petition or even are part of a community group that we could come talk to or something like that. Even if people aren't able to carry petitions themselves, they can still help us out by hosting events or suggesting other people in the community or, just kind of like helping spread the word. So there are a lot of ways for people to get involved. Yes, Caitlin, we do need help with signature verification. That will be in the next slide or so. So before we share the asks of you all and the opportunities to get even more engaged, I know a lot of you are already super engaged. We just wanted to give an update about some more of the work that we as Great Ed have been doing in partnership with the Colorado School Finance Project and Spark and Compass Consulting, which is Susan Meek, Brett Miles, and Sherry Wrench. I'm sure those names will be familiar to a lot of you. And we're also working with Glenn McLean. And these people are super well known in the education space in Colorado. I think at least two of them are former superintendents, school board members, and so just very involved in this space. And so we've been working with them to put together fact sheets for every single school district in the state to, based on some assumptions, to talk, to let folks know how much more money they could see right away if slash when Initiative 195 passes. And so these are conservative estimates. Let me drop the link for the fact sheets in the chat, and the QR code is up there. I just highlighted a couple districts that I thought we'd have represented on the call. But the way that Lisa, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that these numbers were calculated is we felt that it was a conservative assumption that 35% of the funds that are raised from this measure would go towards education. So that's how we got the 700 million. And then we looked at each district's percent of the total student population and used that to divvy up the 700 million. So, of course, it's very hard to predict, as we've just talked about, inflation and enrollment changes and all of the things that would go into this decision. So we wanted to share this information as sort of a benchmark of what districts might be able to expect. And again, a conservative estimate. And Lisa, am I missing anything there?
The only thing I'd say is that when we get this on the ballot afterwards, we're going to be working with school boards. Right now, we want to get resolutions. I think you're going to mention that, but to say if Adams 12 is going to get $27 million, or Jeffco, I'm looking at you, Caitlin, what are the priorities going to be? We're assuming we'll get about $60 million. And if that's what we'll do, then this is what's going to happen, so that we are turning this statewide ballot measure into a local measure, that people can really see and say, okay, so then if this passes, we wouldn't have to close that school. If this passes, then, we could give teachers raises. So we want to make sure that we can make this as concrete for people as possible. And we did do this with very conservative numbers because we do not want to overpromise. We'd rather underpromise and overperform. And we will be working to make sure that we're telling all legislators and anybody who's looking at this is a floor. These numbers are just the beginning. We will be asking for more than this. We don't want them to hold it down. So all of this is it's all one big process that from all the get it done stuff to this is just continuing informing more people, getting more and more people involved in the conversation and in the process, feeling ownership about it, so that we will overperform at the ballot, and I like we did with Amendment 73, and we will.
One other thing that I'll just mention about the fact sheets is that they include other information about like the economic context of your district. So each fact sheet shows how much money your district has lost because of the BS factor. Of course, unfortunately, we know that this isn't enough to make up for all of that, but it's a huge step in the right direction. The fact sheets also show the median income for the school district, or maybe it's county level, and then how many people in the county, what percentage of tax filers in the county will be getting a tax cut. And for most counties, it is like around 99%. So that is another really awesome data point to show people, is that as they're sort of talking about like, well, people don't like taxes to be raised, all the usual things that people bring up, you can point to that number and say, listen, in our community, we would get this much money, and we know that 98.5, as an example, percent of tax filers in our area, in our county, would also get a tax cut. Next slide, please. On the theme of tools, we wanted to also make sure that everyone knows on the Protect Colorado's Future website, there is a tax calculator. It's on the front page of the website. You just have to scroll down a little bit on that homepage. And people can type in their annual income and see, you know, how, like, for example, if you're making $75,000 a year, you'd be paying $275 less under this measure. Of course, the calculator doesn't know like everyone's personal circumstances and deductions, but this is a even greater tool than the income table that's on the petitions and will be on the ballot, for people to look at like their personal, get like an even more accurate estimate of what this would mean for them. And then, as Lisa mentioned, we're also working on getting school boards to pass resolutions in support of 195. So I just dropped the link in the chat for the draft resolutions that the Spark and Compass team put together. They made a draft resolution for every single school district, with the information from the fact sheet for your district already placed into the resolution, so it's hyper specific. And this is a great, this advocacy opportunity is a really great chance for all of us to be flexing our public school strong muscles. So in the bottom left here is an example. Lisa and I are working with Christy to start a petition for Adams 12 school district, for people to show their support, that they would, parents and community members would like the school board to pass this resolution. And I believe Christy is going to be at the next school board meeting for Adams 12, hopefully with some other folks as well, to make this case and share the petition. So hopefully you're seeing like all the things we've been talking about in the last couple of months coming together, some of the advocacy tools that we have. And I would love to be in touch with all of you about, making a petition for your school district on Public School Strong, sharing it around the community, and really focusing on passing a resolution. And we have maybe at least 5, I think, more school boards that are very interested in passing a resolution in the next month or so. So we're planting seeds now, and certainly expecting and hoping that when school's back in session in the fall, we'll see many more resolutions. Okay, so now is the time to talk about like next steps and how people can get involved. There are a bunch of potential ways to support on this slide. As Caitlin said, we are looking for support with verification. So I just dropped a link in the chat to sign up for a verification shift. We have a number of verification hubs, including Great Ed's office in Denver. There's also the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition's office in Lafayette that have several weekly options of verification shifts that people can participate in. If you're not able to be there in person, we can talk offline about figuring out another way for you to help with verification. Yes, Christy's going to be at Great Ed tomorrow helping us out. And this is also a great way for people who can't gather signatures for whatever reason. Maybe they're not a voter, or if you have young people that need like some volunteer hours or something, if they're not 18 yet, whatever the circumstances might be, this is a really great opportunity for people to support the campaign if they're unable to, for whatever reason, gather signatures. I
And
will,
Caitlin, you could
yeah, go
probably
ahead.
talk with Dawn. Dawn is because she's a hub, she gets petitions. So maybe, you can go meet up with Dawn and verify before they come to the Great Ed office. Jan, I think you and Nora might be doing some of that too in the Springs. And Barb in Greeley, Terry Pappas is going to be doing the verification.
Oh, good. Thanks for letting me know.
So Lisa, would you just go back one
Oh, sure, sorry.
slide? I think, like I said, almost all of you I know already have petitions, which is great. But if there's anyone who hasn't had the chance yet to get trained, I just dropped the link in the chat to sign up for one of our online trainings with the coalition. If you're not able to make one of those, I'm always happy to schedule a quick Zoom or phone call and just walk you through the information quickly. I also put in the chat a link for where you can sign up for like upcoming events that we have identified that we are looking for volunteer support at. So, for example, I know Doug Co Pride is this weekend. I'll be there with some friends gathering signatures. There are lots of farmers markets, music festivals, and that sort of thing coming up as we are heading into summer. And so, those are the kind of things that the coalition is sharing through that events sign up link. So if you have a petition and maybe the people that you know have already signed or something, there are still lots of opportunities to get out there and get signatures. Again, other opportunities to support that are a little bit less like out there talking to strangers. We would love to come talk with any group that you are part of, whether it's a PTA or a book club or your neighborhood, registered neighborhood organization. We encourage you to think creatively of spaces that you're in and people that you interact with that might want to learn about this or take the next step. And we can do a training with that group of people to collect signatures. And we're also gathering endorsements from organizations and elected officials, and I believe candidates as well on the measure. And those are all listed on our website. And I will find the link for those in a second. And then, as we said, signature verification is another great way for people to get involved. And we've already had some folks today mention that they are notaries and would like to help out, which is great. Okay, next slide, please. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I'd love to just hear from folks on the call. If you have anything to share that's been going really well so far, it sounds like lots of us were excited to get some good news at the start of this. So if anyone else wants to share some good news or some success you've had lately, that would be very welcome. And if you have any asks of Great Ed or of the coalition, we would like to hear those too. Go ahead, Caitlin.
I just have a question. So I was speaking with somebody and they said that there was some like tension between 135 and 195, that like the unions were behind 135 but not 195. And I don't know that I really understand that. Um, have you heard of any of that tension, or is it am I off base here and just kind
No,
of
no,
lost
that's
or
uh and Jerry can talk about this. So there's a lot of conventional wisdom that makes people anxious about two things being on the ballot. And so I think we've endorsed both. A number of organizations in PCF have endorsed both. CEA has not endorsed 195, but I was just on a call this morning or yesterday when Kevin Vick said, both of these measures would go a long way toward addressing Colorado's chronic underfunding. So I think it really is based in that sort of we can't do both, we can't do both. And I just fundamentally think that that's just not true. And I think there's a lot of people who are excited about both. So go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, hi. I just had cataract surgery, so I don't know if I'm seeing double or what.
Oh,
Uh,
goodness.
yeah. But anyways, I was at I spoken to Kevin also. I was at the delegate assembly we had about 3 weeks ago. And the concern that Kevin Vick, who's our president, expressed is that 195, of course, the first line's going to say, do you want to raise your taxes? And that's required by Tabor, even though, as has been said so many times, 80 to 90% of the people in the state are going to have a tax lowered. And if you read further down in the ballot initiative, it says that, and the table will be in there. But that's CEA's, at least that was expressed to me. The positive part of it is that at delegate assembly, there were several of us who had petitions with us and brought went to the microphones and said, "Hey, we have petitions for this," and we were not ruled out of order. So even though they're not publicly coming out in favor of 195, they're not opposing it either. And my hope is once this is on the ballot, CEA will come on board because, as everybody says, this is kind of it's something we've been wishing for in the 50 years I've been involved in education in Colorado. So it's not going to answer all our problems, but boy, will it go a long way. So that's my hope. I have some contacts on the CEA board, and I'm going to be pushing them also. I mean, one of the things I would love to see if we can get CEA to do this is to get teachers who are going to be going on summer break, especially in the rural areas, to carry petitions because they can address the Durango and La Junta and Lamar areas that are really tough to get. So it's a work in progress, but I'm not looking at it right now as gloom and doom with CEA.
Thank you so much. And it was CEA that kind of, I heard that there was that tension there. So thanks for helping with that. I just didn't, I mean, I understand the idea that it's scary to put two things on, but it's just like, uh, why not? Like, and I think when we have a lot of progressive energy right now and a lot of people who are pissed off, that we need to capitalize on this moment to have them speak at the ballot. So,
Yep.
okay, thank you. I
Exactly.
appreciate that very
Exactly.
much.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts that anyone would like to share?
Caitlin, if you haven't already, you've seen the PTA sign, Say It With Signatures campaign.
No, I haven't.
Uh, we're asking people to pose with it. We'll make sure you get it.
Okay.
It basically is a piece of paper that you can write on. I am gathering signatures for, and it's for Teacher Appreciation Day. It's like I'm gathering signatures for Michelle Top because of what she did for my son. Like this is the way you can show appreciation too. I'm looking at you, and you're either
Oh, I
doing
love
great.
that.
So we're using it for social media so people see it, and it's just
Okay.
like so I'll send you the stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I guess my only final thoughts are just congratulations and thank you for giving us a bright spot and some hope and just being such a wonderful community to be a part of and fighting the good fight. Yeah, it makes me so happy to know that Great Ed is here and fighting day in and day out. So thank you, thank you, thank
So
you.
we're grateful for you, and next month bring a friend. to Advocates Network.
Okay.
That's how we grow.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I I guess I'll just quickly share one thing that you may have heard me say already, but something that I keep returning to is I had someone. Is she on here? Let me see. No, okay, she's not here. I had someone come into Great Ed's office maybe a month and a half ago at this point who was dropping off her first completed petition, and she said, I'm 74, I'm a retired teacher, I've never done any kind of political anything or any sort of advocacy. But I heard about this and I wanted to get involved, and I thought there's no way I'll ever get 40 signatures. And then she turned in her first petition like within 2 weeks of getting it. And I know that I've been keeping in touch with her, and since then she's done maybe like 2 more and has more on the way. And she said, she was like, I'm addicted to this. I'm obsessed with it. It's my new hobby. And so that is something that is giving me hope that I'm telling everyone who will listen. Sorry if you've already heard me say it, but it's just a nice, we have a lot of folks in the coalition with that energy. I know a lot of you have been in this work for a long time, and we're really glad to have you here. And I can imagine that it maybe feels tiring after a while. And so we have those new folks as well that are taking up the reins and helping us out, which is really awesome because we need everyone.
We're going to get it done.
Yes. Okay, it's 5:31. Thank you all so much. I will hang out for a minute if you have questions.